Okay, we're watching Djokovic go through a practice drill here. This is a really good one, actually. This is a version of the classic butterfly drill where he's running a 2-1 pattern. And a 2-1 pattern typically on the Pro Tour is going to be 2 balls cross-court, and it usually happens out of the ad side, and that will open up the opportunity for down the line. And this is a cooperative drill, so Djokovic is always changing third ball down the line. But it's a really good way to work on changing of direction and movement in a cooperative setting. But it's very tough to do. Anyone who's done this drill before knows how hard it is. But it's a really good live ball drill to do with a partner and to work on your accuracy, your consistency, and also your movement. So Djokovic and Khachanov hitting at Indian Wells here down the centre, something that rec players can take a bit of a tip from both these guys here hitting in the centre is how they move laterally out of the way of any ball that's coming deep or hard down the centre. And a lot of times players that get caught on a deep ball get caught because their first instinct is to move backwards. And if you watch these guys hit any of these balls that come in deep, their first instinct is to move laterally so that they can create a hitting zone for that ball to travel right down to. And you're going to see that over and over again throughout this rally as they're hitting right to each other, and the focus is mostly on depth and quality. But they don't get jammed, the ball's not close to their body, and that's because they're working on quick lateral movements to create good hitting zones. So that's something that I think all recreational players can work on improving. If not, you're going to find that you will be backing off the baseline, giving up a lot of core position. This is a great return location to jam the server up. Notice how the server gets stuck with the forehand, committed really early, and puts himself at a disadvantage just to hit it. I find that there are many players that will do this when they're actively always looking for the serve +1 forehand. It's the theme of today's tennis, but you also have to understand when it's getting a backhand rather than forehand. And that's when you're going to run yourself into a disadvantage. You're pushing yourself all the way back into that corner just to hit defensive or a neutral ball is not enough. You're better off holding your ground, hitting a backhand, staying close to the center of the court. But this is an area that you can expose players on if you're able to locate that return there. It's a tough decision for the server, especially when the ball is, like I said, always looking for the forehand. But if you're the server and you have trouble with this ball, don't avoid it. Make sure you spend a significant amount of time working on neutralizing the backhand from deep middle, because this is an area that you will get targeted at higher levels of the game. Through this unit turn, the strings are always pointing to the ground. He doesn't have his racket on edge. As he takes the racket back, 2 hands to lift and separate, and this allows you to create some drop-in speed so that you can get that racket moving quickly, but it also keeps the take back pretty short. If you're the kind of player who takes the racket behind your back, you want to have a look at your elbow positioning, because often a low elbow allows the racket and swing to go behind the body, which is not preferred when you have to deal with different depths and paces. So getting that racket up, getting that elbow up, gives him a good amount of racket head speed, keeps the swing on the hitting side of the body. The second thing to notice here is watch the strings down drop. As he drops the racket, he's dropping its strings down. That means controlling the racket face all the way in the drop. And have a look at the result of this shot. He's really driving this ball. So from this core position, it's a little bit unusual. You'll see because of the limited drop underneath the ball, he's going straighter to the ball, which means it's going to be more of a drive. Doesn't mean he doesn't have spin on the ball, just means that the trajectory is going to be lower over the net. So if you're looking for more spin and height, then you would want to go from this position into a much lower drop and then still come out to the same contact. So a few of the fundamentals of the dribble forehand, very clean forehand, a little bit stylistic in the way he sets it up on his wrist, but nevertheless some really good fundamentals to help. So drop shot season, and you have Holger Rune here practicing his drop shot. It's really important at a higher level to disguise your drop shot, because all of the cues that your opponent is looking for often happen before the ball is hit. So they have the head start on whether they have to cover the drop or not. Have a look at how the racket's taken back with two hands initially. Now, Rune has a bit of an individual forehand. He gets to this position regular, a little more than most, but he still changes the grip at the back of the swing. So once his shoulders are turned, he doesn't come in with a continental grip. So if you're looking to sell a drop shot well, you've got to set it up like you're going to drive it before you make the grip change. Often just getting your opponent to make one step back is the difference between hitting a winning drop shot and hitting a poor one that your opponent punishes.
The set of tennis would be concluded by the blockbuster tiebreak that it deserved.
Okay, this is the Roger Federer contact point for his slice backhand. I want you to notice how flat that racket face is on contact. This is where a lot of players get mistaken as to what actually happens at the impact point on the slice backhand. And the racket is always very flat. In fact, it's never more open than about 10 degrees at contact. So as the racket face is brought down to the ball, it's going from open to flat at contact. And it's this part of the swing here that most people get wrong, where they keep the racket face open. Something to notice is that at the end of the swing, and this is where it's a little bit of an optical illusion, the racket face opens back up again. And you can see that here it's open. So when the naked eye looks at Roger's racket face open here and in real time sees him swinging down through contact and it's open again, you naturally believe that the contact point is open, and it really isn't. It's so important that you get the feel of having a flat racket face on contact with the slice backhand. One of the best ways you can feel that is to have a very short follow through here. And you actually get a real good feel for how flat it needs to be in order to keep the ball nice and low on the net and not pop the ball up. Big key to the slice backhand is the contact point. So we all know how important returning a serve is. Footwork routine, the way you move to it, your court positioning, also the way that you hold the racket and the level that you hold the racket head can determine how easy it is for you to return serves, especially big serves when you're trying to block them. And what I wanted to highlight in this video is Tommy Paul's racket position when he starts. Have a look at the racket tip being pretty much facing the opponent. It's in a position where it's straight. And if your racket head is pointing up, it means it's going to have a lot of travel racket head is in Tommy's position, he can just take the racket to the side and be very square. So he's able to block that ball a lot easier because that racket head is down. Something you want to think about if you're a player that has to return big serves is, do you have the ability to just square the racket head on the ball pretty easy? Many players who have that racket head up end up shaking or framing because there's just more travel to the ball. So something to think about if you are returning big serves as a racket head position. This also goes in along with the court position because as you stand close to the net, you take away time from yourself. So looking at block serves, address your racket head position, address your court position. But this is something that might help players who are playing high level and have to deal with those faster serves.